Okay, so hello and welcome again to our session. So today we are going to have a continuation on the lecture on geomorphic process. So we had already flashed this before, our learning objectives, and we have already discussed some portions of endogenetic processes and the diagram and some endogenetic processes, faulting, folding, diastrophism, and details of metamorphism. So today we will move on to endogenetic process on volcanism, earthquake, and landslide, and then eventually we are going to proceed to the exogenetic processes. So meantime, let us have volcanism. So volcanism, as defined as the phenomenon of eruption of molten rock or the magma onto the surface of the earth or a solid surface planet where lava, pyroclastics, and volcanic gases erupt through a break in the surface called a vent. So because of the explosion caused by too much pressure and temperature, there will be a vent. Okay, so it includes all phenomena resulting from and causing magma within the crust or mantle of the body to rise through the crust and form volcanic rocks on the surface. Normally, volcanoes are formed by eruptions of lava and ash when magma rises through the cracks or the weak spots. Saan ba lalabas yung yung pressure? Of course, the weak portion of the surface, dun sa mga cracks on the Earth's crust. So a buildup of pressure in the Earth is released, and of course, it includes also the effect of the plate movement, which forces molten rock to be exploded into the air, causing a volcanic eruption. And by the way, part of the eruption is the pyroclastic material. So when we say pyroclastic material, it refers to the cloud of ash. So when your lava fragments are being carried through the air in vapor, this is called the pyroclastic material. So the flow on the pyroclastic material is very hot and moves rapidly because of the buoyancy that is provided by the vapors. Okay, so this pyroclastic flow could extend to a substantial distance. Okay, could extend miles from the volcano, and of course to devastate life and property. Okay, so what is inside the volcanic eruption? So we can see in the diagram that there will be an exit of the hot material or the molten rock. So this molten rock is associated with ash, hot water, rock fragments, gases, and cliff soil. Okay, so the concentration of magma is on the magma chamber. Okay, so magma chamber is within the Earth's crust, and some portion that penetrates, or magma that penetrates some portion of the Earth's crust, is what we call magma tube, and the exit point or the exit way is the conduit. Okay, until it will exit to the crater. Okay, so that is a simple diagram of a volcanic eruption. So of course, once your volcano will erupt, this will begin to have different or various landscapes, okay, or what we call the volcanic landforms. So the magma in the volcanic eruption process, of course, the silicate mixture magma forms in the Earth's crust or inside the upper mantle of the Earth. So there will be some considerations on the composition or the shape of the volcano will be now dependent on the action of the inner material. And of course, the inner material, it is also dependent on what is the material. Okay? What is the density of the material and the viscosity of the material. Whether your material is masyadong malapot or medyo matubig. Okay? So whether your flow of the magma will become turbulent or it will just be confined to a certain location. Okay, and so the eruption process is simply explained by the diagram a while ago. So how do volcanoes form? Of course, volcanoes will come in so many various sizes and shapes. Okay, so there are determining factors on the size of the volcano or the shape of the volcano. So it is determined by of course the volume of the lava that has erupted, and what will be the type of lava. And again, we consider viscosity as a great influence, okay, because if your material is too viscous, therefore there will be a resistance to flow. Okay, so to sum up, factors that determines the shape and the size of volcanoes, we have, of course, number one, the volume of the volcanic products, and then the interval length between eruptions. Okay, so we are now considering the frequency of eruption of the volcano, and then the composition of the volcanic products, okay, the volcanic material itself, and then the variety of volcanic eruption types, and the geometry of the vent, and of course the environment into which the volcanic products are erupted. So how do volcanoes form? Magma rises through cracks, okay, or the weak points. So there will be a pressure build up inside the earth, and then when this pressure is released as a result of plate movement, magma explodes to the surface, causing a volcanic eruption. So the lava from the eruption cools to form new crust, and over time, after several eruptions, the rock builds up and a volcano forms. So simple lang naman ibig sabihin yan. Kapag nag-erupt yan, lalabas yung material and it will scatter. Whether your material is concentrated in a certain location, or may distribute on some locations. Okay, so and after some time, or it will settle to a permanent set. Okay, kasi titigas yung material. And with such explosion, there will be various volcanic structures and features that will also visible or observed right after the eruption. So in volcanology, there's such thing as lava dome. Okay, so lava dome is a circular mound shape. It is a protruding material that resulted from the slow extrusion. When we say extrusion, the exit of the viscous lava. When we say viscous, malapot yan. Okay, viscous lava from a volcano. So when we say viscous, it is restrictive of a flow, meaning hindi siya gaanong lalayo, and from that magkakaroon ng dome building eruptions, which are common particularly in sa mga convergent plate boundary. Okay, in fact, around 6% of eruptions on Earth are lava dome forming. Okay, so meron din tayong tinatawag na dito na to fissure vent or crater row. So when we say fissure vent, yung eruption is hindi naman ganun kagrabe. Okay, but there will be an observed exit of volcanic material from this linear, okay, magkakahilera na volcanic vent or butas. Okay, the vent is often a few meters wide and may be many kilometers long. So yun, medyo ang definition niya dito is pahaba. Okay, so fissure vents can cause large flood basalts, okay, which run first in lava, okay, but the crater rows or the canyons built up by some of them. Okay, so volcanoes are classified by the eruption type and by the volcanic cone shape. So may mga cone shape din tayo na tinatawag. You can see here in the picture, we have the pyroclastic cone, and then the tuff cone, tuff ring, and maar. So yung pyroclastic cone, ito rin yung tinatawag na cinder cones, and it is the most common type of volcanic cones. So they form after violent eruptions. Okay, so ito nagsosolidify and fall as cinders around the volcanic vent. Usually the size of the gravel, these cinders are filled with many tiny bubbles trapped in the lava as it solidifies. Okay, so may mga bubbles yan before it will solidify. And by the way, itong cinder na to is pyroclastic material. Okay, so sabi natin kanina, yung pyroclastic are materials that are thrown in the air and carried by the vapor. Okay, but cinders are extrusive igneous rocks. They are fragments of solidified lava. So itong cinder na to is mas malaki siya. Okay, kasi nga solidified lava. So para siyang kasing laki ng bato, and fragments, kaya nga sinatawag na sa fragments, and typically brown in color or black or red depending on the chemical composition as well as the weathering. Okay, when we say weathering, kinakalawang or the rock will be subjected to decay. Okay, it will weaken and crushed into pieces. So when we see a tuff cone, okay, ano ba yung tuff cone? So it is sometimes called as yung ash cone. So it is a small monogenetic volcanic cone produced by explosions directly associated with magma. So yung pagsabog, diretso yung magma na sumasabog, brought to the surface through a conduit from a deep-seated magma reservoir. Okay? And then tuff ring, this is another landform. So this is associated with hydrovolcanism. Bakit hydro? Because it includes the intrusion of water. Okay? Tuff rings differ from maars. Ano ba yung maars? Okay. Maars actually are simple circular depressions surrounded by gently sloping beds. Okay? When we say gently sloping beds, hindi gaanong matarik. Okay? Of highly fragmented pyroclastic material. Okay? Puro siya durog na pyroclastic material. So, medyo makalat yung maars. Okay? And it is characterized by gently sloping beds. So, what is the difference from the tuff ring? Tuff rings differ from maars in that the magma-water interactions that form tuff rings occur on Earth's surface. Yung maars kanina, it occurs underneath, but the magma-water interaction for tuff rings occur on the Earth's surface pag lumabas na siya sa surface ng Earth. This interaction can simply occur when rising basaltic magma encounters groundwater at the surface. So these tuff rings also typically contain more juvenile material. Okay, when we say juvenile, hilaw pa. Okay? So tuff cones are smaller and it is a steeper version of tuff rings. Okay? So those are the tuff rings. So ano namang pinagkaiba ng tuff ring sa tuff cone? Yung tuff cone, ito yung iisa lang material niya, tuff cone. More on ash or sabi nga natin kanina, monogenetic volcanic cone. Okay? So those are landforms, and from these landforms also there are different types of volcanoes. We have the shield, caldera, stratovolcano, Soma Volcano, and the complex volcano. So now, let us define those types of volcano one by one. So first, we have the shield volcanoes. So yung shield volcanoes, the material is are less viscous. Okay? When we say less viscous, yun, hindi siya masyadong malapot. That is why the shield volcanoes are characterized with rounded domes, okay? And a gentle slopes. Hindi siya masyadong matarik, kaya tinatawag na shield. So just imagine the shield of Captain America. So ganun yun. Medyo hindi siya halata. Okay? The depression is not that obvious and the slope are gentle because lava travels long distances. That is why mas malaki yung area of coverage of these shield volcanoes. Okay? And it holds only a little gas. Okay? The lava are thin. Medyo, kung baga sa Ilocano, madaroy. So, shield volcanoes are usually basaltic. Okay? So along mid-ocean ridges, seafloors spreading, many volcanic islands along mid-Atlantic ridge. So we can also find shield volcanoes beneath continental plates. So on the hotspot, which generates large volume of basaltic lava. So forms of flood basalts. Basaltic lava you can see in the picture on Himeji Island, on Iceland, on mid-Atlantic ridge. So we also have a continental flood basalts in Columbia Plateau in US. So napakalaki nito, no? Okay. So by the way, what do we mean by what is the definition of basalt? So recalling the characteristics of basalt, sinabi na nga dito that it is a low viscous material and it could travel a long distance. Okay? So yung anong comparison between basalt and granite? So in my early discussion, basalt material, nanggagaling yan sa continental plates, while the granite, baliktad. Basalt material are coming from oceanic plate. So yung oceanic plate is associated with water. Okay? So there will be a water intervention on the material, while that of the granite are found on continental plates. Okay? So by the comparison, hindi siya ganong katigas, and it is easier for outside substances to impact and manipulate its structure, meaning madali siyang matunaw or madali siyang mag-weather, or it could easily be decayed. So basalt, yun yung characteristics ng basalt. So yung texture niya, it is a fine and even grain. Okay? The dense rock has no crystals or minerals that can be seen by the naked eye. So when it is freshly broken, you can see that basalt has a dull surface. Metamorphosed basalts are important hosts for a variety of hydrothermal ores. Okay? Importante yung basalt, including the deposits of gold, copper, and volcanogenic massive sulfide. So basalt is largely composed of minerals with little resistance to weathering. Madali siyang ma-decay. Okay? So basalt as a whole also tends to disintegrate faster than granite and other felsic rock types. Okay? So magnetite is one of the most resistant common minerals in basalt and forms the bulk of heavy mineral sands. So yun, that is all about basalt. So moving on to another type of volcano, we have here stratovolcano. Kung yung slope ng shield volcano kanina is a gentle slope, this is the opposite. Stratovolcano is a tall, conical volcano composed of one layer of hardened lava, tephra, and volcanic ash. So these volcanoes are characterized by a steep profile and periodic explosive eruptions. So the lava that flows from them is highly viscous. So malapot, and if it cools, it hardens before spreading very far. Okay, hindi siya lalayo because of its viscousness. So most active stratovolcanoes on a circum-Pacific mountain belt. You can see here in the picture. So it is usually associated with subduction zones. We also have felsic lavas produce explosive eruptions. Degassing restricted due to high viscosity. So kinukulong niya yung gas because of its high viscosity, causing an explosive eruptions. So central part of volcano may explode, or draining of magma chamber and collapse of roof block may create caldera. So ano ba yung caldera? It is a central depression. Okay? So here it is. That is a central depression. We can see it on the figure. The feature of caldera. And by the way, caldera is not the same thing with that of the crater, ano? Baka mapagparehas nito. So the difference is that yung crater, it is formed by an outward explosion of rocks and other minerals from the volcano, while calderas are formed by the inward collapse of a volcano. Okay? So yung crater mas bilog siya than caldera, no? And a caldera is a large depression formed when a volcano erupts and collapses. So during a volcanic eruption, magma present in the magma chamber underneath the volcano is expelled. So nilalabas yan, and then often forcefully. When the magma chamber empties, pag naubos na, the support that the magma had provided inside the chamber disappears. So as a result, bababa yan. Okay? The sides and top of the volcano collapse inward. So caldera will form and vary in size from 1 to 100 kilometers. Okay? In diameter. So medyo mataas yung kanyang upper limit na 100 kilometers. Okay? Yung 1 kilometer pa nga lang that is 1,000 meter. That is the diameter of caldera, or the size variation of caldera. Okay. So moving on, we have the term here, Soma Volcano. So we can see here the difference in the Soma and caldera. Yung lagyan mo lang ng isang volcano pa, or a central cone, yung caldera, and that forms a Soma Volcano. So bakit ito Mount Soma, Italy? Because a Soma Volcano, the name comes from Mount Soma, no? In Italy. So this is a type of volcano, stratovolcano actually, with a summit caldera in which the upper cone of Mount Vesuvius has grown. So itong nasa gitna ito yung tinatawag na Mount Vesuvius. Doon yan sa Italy. Okay? Or literally the name itself, Soma, pangalan. Pero inadapt na rin yung Soma Volcano when we have a caldera having a central cone. Okay? So next we have a complex volcano. As we can see, a complex volcano is simply a volcano with type with several types. Okay? With several cones, and several craters. So that is a complex volcano. So it is actually a mixed landform consisting of elated volcanic centers and their associated lava flows and pyroclastic rock. So we also have here the volcanic dome. So it is also called lava dome. Okay? Any steep-sided mound that is formed when lava reaching the Earth's surface is so viscous that it cannot flow away readily. So ma-accumulate yan sa isang lugar. And it will have a plug. Yun, plug. Matatakpan yung kanyang vent. Okay? So this plug will be accumulated around the vent. So yun yung tinatawag na plug dome. Parang tinakpan niya rin yung bunganga ng ating vulkan. So the plug is nearly the height of the Washington Monument and the width of 4 football fields. So napakalaki niya. Okay. So we have here in Lassen Park. You can see here a plug dome volcanic landform. So it was built from felsic lava. Okay? So felsic lava, ito yung medyo viscous, malapot. So one of the largest on the earth, and it is carved by glaciers during the Ice Age. Okay? So moving on, tingnan naman natin kung ano yung mga volcanic land formations in the Philippines. So I have picked several here, yung mga sikat. But actually there are, I think, more than 20, around 26 ang nakalistang volcano in the Philippines, because remember, the Philippines is situated along the Pacific rim of fire. Okay, the Pacific rim of fire. So first we have here Mount Binuluan. So saan ba yan? So it can be viewed from the village of Upper Uma in Lubwagan. So it is also known as Ambalatungan. Okay? Ambalatungan. So itong kaisa-isang volcano in the Kalinga province of Car. Okay? So it is a part of Cordillera Central Mountain Range on Luzon Island. So Binuluan exhibits active volcanism through numerous fields and hot spring on its slope. So ang ebidensya is yung hot spring, fumarole fields, and solfataras. Ano ba itong mga to? So when we say fumarole field, it is an area of thermal springs and gas vents. Okay, may mga butas yan where shallow magma or hot igneous material are found. Okay, so fumaroles are characterized with the usok, para siyang usok, wherein volcanic gas escapes into the atmosphere. Okay, so meron din tayong tinatawag na solfatara. So solfatara, ito yung linalabasan ng high concentrations of sulfuric compounds. Of course, meron din siyang volcanic steam vent. Okay? Volcanic steam vent. And yun nga, yung mga hot spring. So those are the evidences of that mountain being a volcano. However, wala namang reported na or history of the eruption of this volcano. So, sabi nga dito, explosions in 1952 is uncertain. Okay? Baka may report nun pero hindi sila sigurado kung talagang pumutok tong vulkan dito. Itong vulkan na to. Okay. So, Mount Binuluan. Okay. So, another volcano here we can see in the picture is the popular Mayon. Okay. So, this is an active stratovolcano situated on Albay in Bicol region. So, this is a popular tourist spot, and pinangalanan nga to na perfect cone because of its symmetrical conical shape. Okay? So, historically, itong Mayon volcano recorded around 50 eruptions. Okay? So, there are 50 eruptions. So, ranging from the 1616 to 2013. So, it was permanently monitored. And the most recent major volcanic activity was occurred in 2020. So, recent lang yan. Last year. Okay. So, another volcano is the Taal Volcano. So, Taal Volcano is actually a large caldera. No? So, it is filled by Taal Lake. So, nasan ba yung Taal Lake? It is situated in Batangas. So, the volcano is located about 50 kilometers south of Manila. So, the main crater lake was temporarily displaced in 2020 Taal volcanic eruption. Okay? So, alam naman natin, sumabog na yan. And, actually, it is designated as a decade volcano. Okay? So, it was also reported that Taal volcano has several violent eruptions in the past, okay, causing deaths on the island and the populated areas surrounding the lake. Okay? Taal volcano is deadly, ano? So, ilang beses na pumutok, it erupted 35 times historically. And here, another volcano, ito napakasikat noong 1990s. So, it is the Mount Pinatubo volcano, and it is classified as a strato or composite volcano. So, andesite and dacite are the predominant material. Okay? So, it is covered in a dense forest before. Yun nga, naging dormant yan. Naging dormant siya ng almost 500 years. So, sino ba namang mag-aakala na puputok somewhere in 1991? And such eruption is one of the most violent volcanic calamities of the 20th century. Why? Because after the volcanic eruption, nagkaroon ng bagyo, and then of course, the volcanic eruption has become a lahar flow. Okay? Eventually, natabunan yung mga bahay, and a lot of lives were lost at that time. Okay, so again, it is a stratovolcano. As you can see in the picture, medyo ano siya, steep. It is characterized by steep slopes, side slopes. Okay, so I think that ends the volcanic or volcanism, the concept of volcanism. And as a summary, the determinants of the volcanic process or the landforms out of the volcanism is characterized by the volume of volcanic products, kung ano yung frequency ng eruption, and then ano ba yung volcanic material, and the geometry of the vent, and of course the environment. So moving on to another type of geomorphic process, we have here landslide. Okay, so we all know that the landslide is a landslip. So it is a simple concept of gravity. Okay, the landmass. So what triggers the landslide is the gravity. Okay, by the way, landslide is characterized by so many factors. Okay, hindi naman mag-slide dyan kung enough yung resisting factors. Okay, at hindi rin mag-slide dyan kung mapipigilan yung driving force. Okay, so it is characterized by a resisting force and a driving force. Ano yung resisting force? Resisting force, yung pumipigil. So ano bang pumipigil? Number one, the type of slope material. Okay, so kung intact yun, or when we say a cohesive soil or very stiff material on the slope, of course it will certainly have a low susceptibility to the landslide. So how about the driving force? The driving force, number one, meron tayong gravity. Okay, so gravity, and another thing is the saturation of the material. That is a driving force. Why? Because it weakens your resisting force. At ang yung resisting force mo is yung lupa. Pag nabasa, it will loosen and it will go down. Okay, and another driving force is the slope angle. So yung slope angle is the main driving force, because the driving force is increased kasi nga as the slope is getting steeper, the gravity is increased, or the weight is increased. Okay, or shall we say the effect of weight is increased, because the horizontal component or the tangential component will get bigger when we have a steeper slope. So another driving force is the land use. So we can see here in the figure na yan, because of the weight of some occupants above the slope triggers landslides. Okay, so I think we can discuss this into later chapters, particularly on geohazards. Okay, but certainly this is a type of geological agents that could alter our geomorphic features, or the geomorphology of our surface. Okay, so moving on, we have the geological agents. So what is geological agents, by the way? So this is actually the natural forces that influences visible changes in Earth's surface. So from erosion, okay, bakit nag-erode? Because of the gravity, and it will be transported, okay? It will be transported and it will settle on a certain location through deposition. So, meron tayong tatlong process dito. Number one, erosion. And then dito na papasok yung geological agents. Anong role ng geological agents? It will transport, and then certainly it will be settled to a certain position, that is deposition. So again, we have two types of geological agents. It could be exogenous or external, or endogenous. This is internal. So we have exogenous geological agents. We have number one, the wind. Of course, the wind will transport sediments and mass wasting. By the way, from erosion, meron din tayong initial process na tinatawag na weathering. So we will go into details right after this topic, yung weathering process. So from that weathering, kasi nga from the solid rock, it will become weathered and then broken into fragments, and then from fragments mas lalong madudurog hanggang maging lupa na yan, okay? And from that, erosion, transportation, deposition. So those that are the process. Okay, so wind. So the main erosion process caused by wind are, number one, deflation. So ano ba yung deflation? So forms a layer of rock that is called a desert pavement. Okay, so desert pavement because of deflation. And why is that? Because yun yung behavior of the surface, or the wind aerodynamics will have some effects on the surface, forming layer of rock. Okay, so these are stony fields, you can see in the figure. And we also have abrasion. It forms mushroom shaped rocks. What is abrasion all about? So it is actually a process of scrape or wearing something away. So na-scrape yan because of your wind. Okay? So of course, ang maiiwan yung mga cohesive portion. When we say cohesive, the intact portion of the material will stay intact. So yung mga loose material, mawawala na yan. And that is a form of scraping by the wind. And out of this, we also have the aeolic sedimentation. And when the wind finds an obstacle in the landscape, we will have a sand dune. Okay? Meron tayong Barchan dunes and transverse dunes. So yung Barchan dunes, you can see that it is having a parabolic shape, and transverse dunes pahaba, and the star dunes literally forming a shape of star. So another type of geologic agent, externally, we have glaciers. So we had already discussed some concept and the geologic formation on glaciers. but let us have a recap that the glacier is an ice, okay, an accumulated ice, and certain glacier moves very slowly, few centimeters to a few meters each day, so it depends on the glacier. Okay, so we had already discussed this alpine glaciers. It is characterized by these geologic features: cirques, horns, arids, U-valley moraines. Okay. So next we have the wild water. So of course, how is it formed? Saan ba nanggaling yung wild water? Of course, galing yan sa rainstorm. And a rainstorm will be catched by what we call watershed. Okay? Yung watershed, ito yung mga bundok na sumasalo and then binababa yung tubig and it will form wild water. So a certain great amount of water will modify the relief. It could be either streams or torrents. So itong torrents is a strong and fast moving stream of water. So napakabilis niyan. That is why you can see here, it could either intermittent or when we say intermittent, it is occurring at intervals, hindi siya continuous, ano? So it occurs on very steep slopes, napakabilis niya sa very steep slopes, and it is a fixed channel and then ice melts or a period of heavy rains. So the stream are non-defined nor permanent courses of water also. So on this, it could erode the smooth and homogeneous soil easily. Bakit? Kasi nga, yung homogeneous material, mas ano yan, mas hindi siya intact. Why? Because there is no element of binding. Kaya nga in geotechnical engineering, meron tayong tinatawag na design grade of subgrade. When we say a good grade, mix siya, halo-halo. No? Halo-halo. Because there is an element of cohesiveness of the soil. Okay? So, pero pag isang material lang yan, of course, it will be easily eroded when it is saturated by streams. While that of heterogeneous soil, some parts are harder to erode because perhaps ito may mga binders yan. Maganda yung mixture or the grade of the soil. So magkakahalo yung maliit na bato and then fine soil, and that will have an element of binders. So it will cause Fairies chimney. So this is another geologic feature, no? Fairies chimney. While as uneasily eroded, it will form a reel or a gully. Okay. So moving on, we have now the rivers. So it is said that 0.0001% of the Earth's water is sourced from the rivers, and the different sources of a river is from lakes, springs underground, rain or melting snow, and ice in high mountains. Okay, So we can see here, under normal conditions, defined na yung path ng river, while flood conditions, umaapaw yan. Okay? So as we can see here, there are tributaries. When we say tributary, these are stream paths. Okay? Until it will form a river, and then it will exit to a delta. Ito yung watershed, this dotted line. Watershed kasi nga, pababayan lahat. Okay? Sasaluhin niya lahat ng tubig, and it will flow into the tributaries and transmitted to the river until it will exit to the mouth. Usually, that is in the delta, or the intersection between the sea water and the river. Okay? So, on rivers, we have the mass wasting process, wherein kung nakikita natin sa river, pinagkakwaryan yan, bilog yung mga bato. Why? Because of this enumerated phenomena here. First, yung mga sediments, it will be floated and then sink. Okay, fine light material is carried along by the river. So since these are flowing, susunod lang yan sa flow, and then the solution will be dissolved, or the minerals will be dissolved in water. Kasi nga, some minerals could be soluble in nature. So with this, matatanggal yung ibang mineral, and there will be a chemical alteration. Kaya nga tinatawag na chemical change. And then, kapag gumulong yan, yan yung traction. So, large boulders and rocks are rolled along the riverbed. Okay, and then siltation, small pebbles and stones are bounced along the riverbed. Okay? So, kung titignan nyo, kaya bilog-bilog yung ating mga bato sa river because of this mass wasting process. So rivers have actually different stages of stream development. Could be very young river, then early maturity, late maturity, and of course old age. Kapag old age, medyo lumalawak na, no? Okay, so magiging very wide, and then cut off meanders, while late maturity, flat floored valley. So it is narrow floodplain, river begins to meander. Pag sinabing meander, lumalawak yung kanyang stream. Floodplain widens. I think our Chico River is on the early maturity stage. And next agent is the groundwater. So you know that the groundwater is a good source of our consumption, water consumption, or water source. So of course, yun, from the surface, it will percolate, okay, and then will settle on the saturated zone, okay. So water held by molecular attractions around surfaces of rock particles. Okay, all openings below the water table full of groundwater. So what will be the role of groundwater? Kung makikita nyo sa kuweba, itong mangyari. We have the karst reliefs because merong mga underground material that is having a limestone or mildly acidic water. Yung mga acidic water, it will alter your minerals. Tutunawin yung ibang minerals. Okay? And form karst reliefs. Karst reliefs are landscape shaped by the dissolution of a soluble bedrock layer. So usually, carbonate rock such as limestone or dolomite. Okay? So, Marami. We have also sinkholes, dolines, disappearing and reappearing streams, bulges. Okay, so those are the geologic landscape formed out of the groundwater. So another geologic agent is seawater in coastal areas. Of course, every now and then, nagwe-wave yan along the coastlines of our continents. So, waves, tides, sea currents, seawater is constantly moving, and it has a lot of energy. So, it will cause erosion, transport, sedimentation process as they model coastal areas. And the waves will cause erosion, of course, and either chemical or physical weathering. Okay? Kasi may may salt content which is essential in dissolving some minerals. As we can see here, salty sea reacts in chemical ways with rocks and makes them weaker. Okay? Ewan ko kung bakit ganun. Salty sea. Bakit ganun? Pag ininom naman natin, magiging bato. Sabi dito, yung salt daw, it will cause rocks and makes them weaker. But when pag ininom natin, it will form a rock inside our gallbladder or kidney. Anyway, different thing naman yan because may concentration kasi sa loob ng ating katawan. Of course, there are a lot of acids that make salt react and solidify. Iba naman dito. Okay. So, erosion, stones and other sediments are carried by waves and they crash into the coastal rocks. So, some landforms, you can see here cliffs, sea caves, arch, abrasion platforms, and sea stacks. So, here we can see large crack open up by hydraulic action. The second stage will have the crack grows into a cave, magiging cave, by hydraulic action and abrasion, and the cave becomes larger. And after which the cave breaks, magiging hollow na yan, through a headland forming a natural arc. So this is a natural arc. And then the arc is eroded and collapses. And then this leaves a tall rock stack. This is rock stack. And then the stack is eroded forming a stump. So, yan yung different stages. It will have a gradual alteration and form different types of landforms. And from the waves, we also have transport and sedimentation of material, beach, deposition of sand and gravel along the shoreline. Maiipon yan sa shoreline. And we will be having a long shore drift. So this process is when individual particles are moved along the beach in a zigzag pattern. So it is a zigzag pattern. So that is the long shore drift. Okay. So we can see here several landforms out of the longshore drift. We have the Spitz, Bay Barrier, Barrier Island, Tombolus, Lagoons, Barrier Island. Okay, Tombolo. Okay, so those are the alterations out of the longshore drift of the seawater. Okay, so I think that ends our lecture for today. So we had already tackled exogenous process wherein it includes geological agents enumerated a while ago. Okay, so next meeting we will continue to the weathering process. So with this, I thank everyone for attending this video lecture. So, good day, and don't stress yourselves. Thank you.